You're listening to Simon Scriver's amazingly ultimate fundraising superstar podcast, talking all things fundraising, charities, nonprofits, and more. Here's your host, as always, Simon Scriver.
It's that time of the week again where I focus on one area of your fundraising. I give you a few quick tips in about 10 minutes or less to help you raise more money. Today, we want to talk about getting your board to help with your fundraising. You might call them board members, you might call them trustees, they might simply be committee members in the early days of your nonprofit, but every one of them have a role in fundraising. Even if they don't know it, even if they don't agree with that, even if they don't seem like they care about fundraising, they all have a role in fundraising. Now, that's not necessarily asking, but there is a way that they can help you, and our job is to find where they fit in. If you've worked in America, you may have heard the phrase give, get, or get off. They talk about that every board member should be either giving money, should be getting money, or they should be getting off the board. And I love that phrase, but it's not that simple all the time. A lot of the time, we as fundraisers have to find where individual board members fit in. We have to remember that these are human beings and they joined because they cared, they have their strengths, they have their weaknesses, and we have to work with them to help us in fundraising. Our job as fundraisers, to remember, is to manage up. It's to manage in all directions. We manage our CEO, we manage our board, and we have to manage our board members so that they become better fundraisers, or they become a stronger cog in the wheel that is fundraising. That phrase doesn't make sense, but you know what I mean. So first of all, what we want to do is we want to remember that they are human beings, and they are good human beings. They are volunteering their time, and they care about their cause, and they are here because they are good people. It's easy to forget that sometimes, and I love nothing more than moaning about board members and calling them assholes sitting around a table making terrible decisions. I like to think of them sometimes as, sitting at their dinner party just before they play charades, eating canapes, and bragging about sitting on this board while actually doing very, very little. But that's not the case. In reality, what we have to remember is that they are good human beings. They want to help. They want to do it in the way that they're comfortable with, and we have to work with that. We have to remember that they have their own lives, and that you and your fundraising is the bottom of their priorities, very possibly the very bottom of their priorities. They have to deal with their family. They have to deal with their annoying kids. They're getting emails and text messages from their spouse giving them unreasonable chores to do. They have to oversee the governance. They have to oversee the finance. They have their day job to do. They have to worry about the money coming in. They have to worry about their bills. And then along comes an email from you asking them to go to your stupid fucking Harry Potter quiz. So you have to remember that we're fitting into the rest of their lives, and we have to behave accordingly. At the very least, until we've gained a huge amount of trust from them, whether we start to move up their priority list. I find it helps to think of board members as a segment in your database. In the same way that we talk about how we communicate with donors, how we communicate with volunteers, how we communicate with the media and with corporates, we also need to think about how we're going to communicate with board members. What is the journey? What is the supported journey that we're going to bring those board members on? And how are we going to communicate with them? We have to market to them. We have to market to board members so that they like us, they like the fundraising department, they like the work we do, they like the organization that they're working with, and they're going to want to take action for us. So think of the same process that we go through when we communicate with our other segments. We usually go through that cycle of ask, thank, and report. And we want to make sure we do that. Too often we fall into the trap of just simply asking board members to do things. Here's what I want you to do now. Here's what I want you to do now. So you can see why we start to annoy them. Instead, we want to make sure we gush over them. We thank them. We want to make sure we report back to them to show how their actions have taken had such a positive outcome. And we want to send them stories and communications and wins and testimonials and all of the things that we might send other segments to try and get them on board. When we are asking board members to do things, remember to ask only one person for one thing at a time. If you send a list of things to a board member to do, it's very easy for them to prioritize the things they like and neglect the other things. And if you send an email to a whole bunch of board members, what happens is they all expect the other board member to do the thing. So instead, what you want to do is build up the one-on-one relationship. If you send an email to one person and they feel like it's only to them, then they're going to be more inclined to respond to it. They're going to be more inclined to do the action that you're asking in there. So cut out those group emails to the board unless you have to do them if you're sending reports and things like that. But additional to that, we want to be sending one-to-one emails to the board in the same way that you would be communicating with major donors. You want to try and meet them individually. And this can be tricky sometimes, especially if you have a CEO perhaps blocking you from meeting them or not wanting you to communicate with board members individually. But it's always really helpful to try and meet them for a coffee one-on-one. Pick up the phone, ask them, can you take them out, buy them a coffee, understand why they got involved with the nonprofit, kind of understand them a bit more and keep them updated about fundraising. And what you're actually doing here as well is learning about them. You're learning about their strengths. You're learning about their weaknesses. You're learning about who they know, how they might help your fundraising, what aspect of their role you can tap into to improve your fundraising. So you want to get to know them on a human level. And if you're meeting them face-to-face, one-on-one, what you're doing is you're humanizing yourself. They're more likely to help you if they like you, if they know you, if they've seen your eyes, if they've seen the sweat on your brow, if they've seen you as a human, they actually want to help you. So then we need to work with their strengths. So there's no point in trying to get people to do stuff they don't like. If you're trying to get everyone on your board to ask people for money, you're going to fail because the majority of people don't want to ask for money. So we need to find what part of their role they really fit into. So some board members are going to be really good at writing testimonials, writing about their experience on the board, especially if they're kind of service side board members. Some of them are going to be great at speaking at events and sharing their stories. Some of them are going to be great at making thank you calls, writing thank you letters. Some are going to be great at asking. Some are going to be great donors, and if you can communicate with them well, then some of them are actually going to give money. And I'm a strong believer that every board member should be donating, even if it's a tiny amount. They should know what that experience of being a donor is. Some of them are going to be fundraisers if they love cycling, if they love running marathons. Maybe with a bit of guidance from you and a bit of support from you, they can be great fundraisers. A lot of them, if not all of them, are going to be great for introductions. They all know people. They know people who work in companies. They know people who have money. They know people who don't have money but would be good fundraisers. And so working with them, building that trust, and so they feel comfortable introducing you to the right people is a key role in their time as a board member. Some of them are going to ask, but again, they're going to need a lot of guidance there. You're going to need to teach them how to ask, and you're going to need to teach them what to ask for. Some of them might simply accompany you if you're going to a big meeting where you make the ask, because a board member adds legitimacy to your fundraising. It adds legitimacy to your meetings because this is a top level senior person. They're also a volunteer. Everything about them reeks of greatness around your organization. And so they're a great tool to bring along when you're meeting with important people. Remember, your role as a fundraiser is to train your board. You need to teach them how to fundraise. You need to teach them how it works. You need to slot into their existing lives and their existing strengths and work with them to be the best part of fundraising that they can be. And if you're struggling with your board and getting them to work with you or follow some of your advice, sometimes it can really help to get an outsider to give them the same advice. Boards are known for listening more to third parties than they are to their own staff. So if you can perhaps bring in another fundraiser, another senior fundraiser from another organization on a voluntary basis to talk to them and talk about their experience, sometimes they're going to listen to it. You might even pay a consultant, like myself, advertisement here. You might even pay a consultant to come in and tell the board pretty much what you've been telling them the whole time about fundraising, and they're going to be more likely to buy into it. At the end of the day, again, they're humans who care about the cause, and you want to try and connect them or reconnect them with that passion. So always be reminding them about the cause, always be sharing stories about beneficiaries, the same kind of stuff you share to your donors. Always be asking the board why they got involved, what they care about, asking them questions in the same way that we would communicate with any donor or major donor or corporate, trying to learn about them and where they fit into it. If you can tap into their passion, if you can tap into their strengths, then you're going to find they're going to be much more powerful, much more impactful as a fundraiser, and they're going to make your life a lot easier. My final bit of advice here, if you're a fundraiser, is to join a board. Become a board member yourselves. And you may feel like you don't have the qualifications to do it. You may not feel like you're experienced enough, but there are hundreds of thousands of nonprofits out there who are crying out for board members who have any fundraising experience. You will certainly find your place on a board. And the benefit for you is that you see it from the other side. And I guarantee you're going to start to see the pressure that board members are under, the difficulty in time, and how these emails from fundraisers start to go down in your priorities. It's going to make you a better communicator with your board members because you know what it's like to be on the other side. So please consider putting a few hours in every month or every few months on a board member. Put some time into it and it'll benefit you. It'll grow your experience as a fundraiser, but it'll also put you in the shoes of these board members whose minds we feel like we're trying to read all of the time. That's the quick tip for this week. Tune in next week and we'll be doing something else. But remember, we'll be back on Thursday. Why do I keep saying we? I will be back on Thursday with another great interview with a fundraising superstar about a really interesting topic, I'm sure. So please make sure you subscribe. Please tune in then and talk to you soon.
You've been listening to Simon Scriver's Amazingly Ultimate Fundraising Superstar podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and head over to changefundraising.com to learn more or get in touch with Simon. Or don't, whatever, you're big enough to make your own decision.